Hello. All right, so a video where we can discuss critical thinking.
So what is critical thinking? I googled the phrase critical thinking, and what came up was the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. And then the sentence used for context said, professors often find it difficult to encourage critical thinking amongst their students. So I thought it was interesting that the sentence used for context was the difficulties that professors have. So I thought we would talk about critical thinking in the context of the classroom. So for our purposes, critical thinking is understanding and processing written material by way of reading. And so it begins with the reading process, comprehension and understanding, and then seeing the connections and correlations between the concepts that are not strictly articulated. Also, effectively articulating and comprehending concepts accurately. With the understandings gleaned, the student is able to apply concepts and develop new ones with the skills learned. And so the first basic foundation for critical thinking at the academic level is reading and comprehension, reading and understanding. And so with this in mind, we'll take a look at what professors say are the three main obstacles to critical thinking. During a research project, I focused in on these three pre-existing skill sets that deter critical thinking is one. Two, a need for intellectual curiosity. And three, plagiarism and relying on the intellectual work of others. These being the three main obstacles, let's go through them a bit more carefully. So the first, pre-existing skill sets. So often, students learn how to, coming through high school, they learn how to take standardized tests by opening the reading the questions, and then trying to find similar passages in the reading that match the question, and then honing in what they think is an answer, and then marking the A, B, or C. Well, this process will not allow the student to understand the passage, but possibly answer correctly A, B, or C, or D, or what have you, on a standardized test. But then when reading more dense material and ask simply, what does this mean? Or explain this sentence, or explain what the author is saying. Well, that's a different process altogether and requires a different skill set. The second, a lack of intellectual curiosity or a need for more of it. So I think of this as needing to move one's mind. So if we think of a situation where a professor asks a question, and so as a student, do you find yourself sitting with a blank mind, looking around, waiting for someone else to answer correctly, so that that correct answer can be written down in your notes for later regurgitation? Well, that's an example of not moving the mind, waiting and seeing if someone else's mind will move and work to answer the question. But the critical thinking process involves the moving of the mind towards the next concept or the next idea or towards the answer. And then third, plagiarism and relying on the intellectual work of others. Plagiarism comes in many forms. Sometimes it's the direct copy and paste, but sometimes it's a paraphrase that goes too far. Well, whether it's copied or directly paraphrased, meaning words swapped out without an explanation, this is still an obstacle to critical thinking. The flat plagiarism part, in addition to not being legal or permitted, it also does not allow the student to go through the process of thinking, understanding, and forming their own ideas. To give a couple of examples, analogies if you would, let's take fitness. So let's imagine you want to be more fit. And so let's imagine you go and get a personal trainer. So in this analogy, the personal trainer is like the professor. So imagine the personal trainer gives you a workout routine to complete. It involves sets and repetitions in those sets. So let's say you're thinking, I want to be more fit, but I don't want to do the sets. So away from the personal trainer, let's imagine that instead of doing the sets, you watch YouTube videos of other people doing the same exercises, and then go to the gym and then watch people do the exercises, maybe even getting some of the sweat on you, but not doing the exercises yourself. After 3 or 4 weeks of watching the YouTube and watching other people do it, when you meet back with the personal trainer, can you expect that there would be any more fitness gains? Well, not by way of doing the work in the gym, because the work wasn't done. And this is the same way with the reading of the material and critical thinking. To use another example, let's imagine a group of people were gathering to talk about a movie. Let's say it was, for ease of reference, The Empire Strikes Back. So let's imagine that one person has not seen it at all. Everyone else has seen it dozens upon dozens of times. Now, let's imagine, in addition to not having seen The Empire Strikes Back, one person hasn't seen any of the Star Wars films. However, they're going to feign as if they did. So, in preparation, they talk to people who've watched it. They watch the trailer over and over, many, many times the trailer. So then let's imagine the conversation comes up. And so there are some key things that they understand or know because they watched the trailer or talked to friends. But then when asked about those things, so let's say they know, oh, it turns out that Darth Vader is Luke's father. And then someone asks, well, why did that upset him? You go, oh, you don't want the Dark Lord your father, you're just guessing. He goes, no. What did he think about him before he went up there? And you go, wait, what? Yeah, what did Luke think about Vader prior to going to meet him? See, that wouldn't have been in the trailer. You go, oh, I don't know. Well, then if you think, well, Luke thinks that Vader was the man that killed his father. He thinks he's going to confront the killer of his father. Instead, he finds that man is his father himself. And then that would shed more light on how do you think or why do you think he feels a certain way. And so understanding the material then gives one the ability to have a thought, a genuine, original thought about it once you understand it. Suppose the conversation goes on. They say, well, what was Luke doing on that planet with Yoda? You say, oh, I know, he was training. Well, what happened in the cave? What did that represent, do you think? You say, well, what cave? Because it might not have been clear from the trailer. So I can end this example here. But we can see, without having good knowledge of the primary material, it would be difficult to carry on the conversation. And so in the context of the classroom, it is the reading of the material that allows one to be able to engage in the critical thinking process. We have now established that a key component, a foundational component to critical thinking is the reading process, the reading and comprehending process. Quite often it is very difficult for students to sit and read for extended periods. And so working on these strategies through the assignments and the directives given by the instructor help to assist developing this skill set. And this will then combat that first obstacle we talked about, which was the pre-existing skill set that steers one away from critical thinking and more towards memorizing or regurgitating. Also, once you have a more firm understanding of the material, by reading it maybe multiple times, then the questions come up, the intellectual curiosity. And then you're able to ask, well, if he's saying this, well, that might mean this other thing and this other thing. And that's the movement of the mind. What do I think this next move might be? And then once you understand something yourself in the first hand, then there's no need to copy the thoughts of others, meaning plagiarism. So we've identified some obstacles and we've identified some strategies for our goal towards critical thinking.